name is Dani Grodsky. I just graduated Staten Island Technical High School, and I'm going to Brown University in the fall.
My name is Ruma, Begum, and I go to Manhattan.
So we did experiments in perceptual bistability in the NYU Neuroscience Department with our mentor Nava Rubin and our co-mentors Asi Shapiro and Zoe Talbot. What is visual perception? Visual perception is the ability to reconstruct information about the space around us from the light reaching the retina and the eyes. Retina, the innermost light-sensitive membrane covering the back wall of the eyeball. What is bistability? The coexistence of two different states that get activated become stable, only one at a time. This picture shows an example of bistability because the light can be switched on or off only at one certain time. What is perceptual bistability? When there are two different interpretations of the visual stimulus, it gives rise to alternating percepts, each dominating, being stable at different times during the observation. Bistable perception occurs when there are two different interpretations for the same stimulus. For example, in the case of clouds.
Alright, let's see if this. Okay, so should we try? Or we can show it to them after. Okay, so these are two pictures of what the clouds look like. So the one on the left, it's called coherency, and that occurs when the two clouds are moving in the same direction. It's hard to understand now, but at the end we'll see if we can get the video running so you can see it more easily. And the one on the right is called transparency, and that happens, you don't need the glasses yet, I'll tell you when you need them. The one on the right is called transparency, and that happens when the two lines of the flag go in opposite directions.
Another example of bistability, binocular rivalry. A phenomenon in which one's visual perception alternates between different images presented to each eye. It occurs when two different images are presented to the two eyes. Perception alternates between the two.
Alright, so this slide is where you need your glasses. This is an example of binocular rivalry. So if you close one eye and then close the other, you'll see that you see a different image in each eye. So if you keep looking at it, let me explain it. If you keep looking at it with both eyes open through the glasses, you'll see that it switches in between the face and the house. So if you can raise your hand when you see it change from face to house, just to see, raise your hand high, and keep looking through the glasses, and you'll see that it switches. So this is an example of binocular rivalry. Okay, so we're going to switch to slide now. Okay. Alright, so this is a graphical representation of the time it takes in which you see each percept. And basically what the percept is the two different images or the two different things that are occurring. So in the one before it was the face in the house, and the one before that is with the lines going in the same direction and the lines going in opposite directions. So this is an example of the graph that shows that. And if you see the red lines, that's the time for one percept, so coherency in this case, and the green lines is the time that you see the other percept. Something that was found in prior studies is that if you average all of those times together, even though the intervals themselves are different, they're going to be equal. So as you see, there are 3 different trials here, and the blue lines and green lines are different from each other in each trial, but when you average them together, they're going to be equal. And that means that when you do the same experiment with the same person and the same stimulus, you'll have reproducible data. This is another graph that shows that the average occurs. So if you see each line is an example of the time that you see a percept, and the dots occur mostly in the middle. There's a trend where you see the line, and that's showing that the average remains the same. Okay. There's also a linear relationship between the mean duration, which is the average time that you see a percept, and the variable that's changing. So in this case, the alpha can change, and the alpha is the angle between the two lines, or the contrast can change. You can also have the wavelength change, for example. So if you see on the y-axis, that's the mean duration time, and the x-axis is the variable, and the dominance, or the time that you see the percept, is going to decrease as the variable increases, and that happens to be true for alpha and contrast. Lebelt was a scientist who was very prominent in studying visual perception when the field was just starting, so this was in the late 1960s. And he proposed that increasing the stimulus in one eye will not affect the average duration of dominance in that eye. So basically what we're saying, if we're using the example of the face in the house again, if you say your left eye was seeing the face and the contrast was increasing in the face, but the house was staying the same, even though you would think the time you see the percept in the left eye would change because the stimulus is changing, he says that the time will change in the right eye. This is an example of a chart that shows that. So the left eye, this is the duration of the percept in the left eye, and the contrast is changing in that eye, but the mean duration stays pretty much the same, whereas the right eye percept is decreasing drastically, even though the stimulus isn't changing in that eye. So what we're working on in our lab is revisiting this hypothesis, because it seems to break it down after the equidominance point, and what the equidominance point is when you see both percepts 50% of the time. So he only tested when one percept is dominant before the 0.5 dominance point, so this half. And we're looking at this other half over here. So instead of Lebel's hypothesis, which said that it depends on which eye is seeing the stimulus change, they proposed, and what we're working on in our lab, is that it's really the stronger percept that has a change occurring. It doesn't have to do with the other eye seeing a changing stimulus.
Okay, our goal was to revisit prior published papers. We replotted graphical data in order to test Moreno-Bouteille's hypothesis. Our procedure for the Lebel project was to track down relevant papers, research databases like EndNotes and PubMed using keywords such as binocular rivalry. We found papers and referenced it with the text of the paper that we were reading, and we tracked down papers cited on the citation page. And what is EndNotes? EndNotes is a computer program that makes creating, organizing, and storing references easy. It is used for searching by characteristics such as author, title, place of publication, etc. It automatically creates references and exports to other computer programs, and it creates a library of sources that can be easily found and opened in PDF format. After we get the full paper, we open it or download it with PDF, and sometimes we couldn't find the paper online, so we had to scan it and get it on the computer, then analyze the document to find desired graphs, mean duration versus increasing variable, and if the graph is found, we extrapolated the data, used the data to recreate figure to guarantee accuracy.
Okay, well, I don't know why it's not showing, but these are pictures that are similar to the ones that you saw before for Lebel's hypothesis, where there's a curve occurring, and we basically extrapolated that data from the graphs and the papers in order to see if it fit the hypothesis.
Our future work is to create a new graph with new x-axis fraction of dominance of one percept, and fraction is determined by the equation TA over TA plus TB, and the creation of this graph will allow us to observe if the data fits the hypothesis. We had to do our own by stability experiments, and we went in this dark room with a computer that had OpenGL computer programming and MATLAB. We sat in the room for approximately 1 hour. We looked at the computer screen and used the left and right arrow on the keyboard to show which direction the background was perceived to be moving. There were small 5 to 10 second breaks in between each 1 minute session. And in order to take this test, our co-mentor, she first tested us to see if we had 20/20 vision with glasses or with contacts, and if you didn't have it, then you couldn't take the test. And this is data from our experiment, and these are two percepts. Each row had a different wavelength. Each column had a different trial. There were more than 2 trials, but we just used 2 as examples. We averaged all the data of each row, and we graphed it versus the fraction of time 1% is dominant, and the graphs does not support the hypothesis since one line stays pretty stable and the other continuously changes. This is our references. And we would like to thank NYU Neuroscience Department, Dr. Navagugan, our co-mentors, Asya Shapiro and Zoe Talbot, Dr. Sad, the Harlem Children's Society of Army Schools. Any questions?